The first time I saw my twin sister's bruised face, I felt like I was staring at a stranger. A stranger who had been beaten by the man who promised to love her forever. That night, I made a decision that would change both our lives. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would share. And if for even a second this feels familiar, I only ask that you like this video and subscribe. It will help me keep opening my heart. My name is Margaret, and at 72 years old, I never imagined I'd be telling this story. But here I am, sitting in my small apartment in Brooklyn, New York, with the autumn light filtering through my kitchen window, finally ready to speak the truth about what happened that terrible October night 3 years ago. The morning it all began, I was brewing my usual pot of coffee in my cramped kitchen. The radiator clanked its familiar tune, and the scent of burnt coffee mixed with the lingering smell of yesterday's loneliness. Through my window, I could see the busy streets of Sheepshead Bay below, people rushing to work, to life, to somewhere that mattered. I envied them their purpose. At 72, I thought I had seen it all. I had raised 3 children as a single mother after my husband died young. I had worked double shifts at the textile factory for 30 years, my hands growing rough and my back curved from bending over machines. My savings account held exactly $847, not much to show for a lifetime of sacrifice, but it was mine. That morning, like every morning for the past 2 years since I retired, I felt the weight of emptiness. My children called once a week, maybe twice if I was lucky. My grandchildren barely knew my name. I filled my days with soap operas and grocery store visits that I stretched out as long as possible, just to have somewhere to go. Then my phone rang. It was barely 8 in the morning, and the sound cut through the silence like a knife. I almost didn't answer. Who calls that early unless something's wrong? Maggie? The voice was broken, barely a whisper. Lily, my twin sister. But she sounded different. Hollow. Lily? What's wrong, honey? Can I come over? I hadn't seen Lily in 3 months. We used to be inseparable, born just minutes apart, sharing everything from clothes to dreams. But life had pulled us in different directions. She had married James 15 years ago, a successful investment banker who managed portfolios worth millions of dollars. They lived in a beautiful brownstone in Park Slope, the kind of place I could only dream of affording. James had made a fortune in the stock market, and their wealth seemed endless. While I scraped by on my small Social Security checks, Lily lived in luxury. Designer clothes, expensive vacations, a house worth more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. But money, I was about to learn, couldn't buy safety. 20 minutes later, she stood at my door. I opened it and gasped. The left side of her face was purple and swollen. Her lip was split. Her elegant silk blouse was torn at the shoulder, revealing a bruise that spread across her collarbone like spilled ink. "Oh my God, Lily!" She pushed past me, her movements quick and nervous, like a wounded animal seeking shelter. She went straight to my living room and collapsed onto my old sofa, the same one I'd had for 15 years, with its faded floral pattern and sagging cushions. "Don't say anything," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please, just don't say anything." But how could I say nothing? This was my sister, my twin, my other half. We had shared a womb, shared childhood secrets, shared dreams of growing old together surrounded by loving families. Now she sat in my living room looking like she'd been hit by a truck. "Who did this to you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She flinched at the question, her hand instinctively moving to cover the bruise on her cheek. "I fell," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Down the stairs. Clumsy me." I sat beside her, my heart breaking. Even as children, Lily had been the graceful one. She could dance across a room without disturbing a single dust particle. She didn't fall downstairs. "Lily, please, talk to me." Her facade crumbled. Tears spilled from her swollen eyes, and she sobbed into her hands. "It's getting worse, Maggie. So much worse." I held her then, my 72-year-old arm still strong enough to cradle my sister's pain. She smelled like expensive perfume and fear, a combination that made my stomach turn. "How long?" I asked. 2 years. Maybe 3. I don't know anymore. Time gets blurry when you're always walking on eggshells. 2 years. While I had been complaining about my loneliness, my sister had been living in terror just a few neighborhoods away. While I worried about having enough money for groceries, she had been calculating how to survive each day in a house filled with wealth and violence. "Why didn't you tell me?" She pulled away, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Even crying, even broken, she tried to maintain some dignity. "What could you have done? You barely have enough for yourself. And James has connections everywhere. Lawyers, judges, police commissioners. His Bitcoin investments alone are worth more than most people see in a lifetime. His portfolio includes stocks from every major company you can think of. He has assets hidden in accounts I don't even know about. Who would believe me over him? I understood then. It wasn't just about physical violence. It was about power, about money, about a system designed to protect men like James and abandon women like us. Stay here, I said. Stay with me. We'll figure this out together. She shook her head. I can't. If I don't go back, he'll come looking for me. And he'll find me. He always finds me. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. Then I'll go back for you. She stared at me like I had lost my mind. Maybe I had. What are you talking about? We're twins, Lily. We used to switch places when we were kids, remember? Fool teachers, fool boyfriends, fool everyone. We can do it again. Maggie, we're 72 years old. This isn't a game anymore. Exactly. We're 72 years old. What has he got left to take from me? My empty apartment? My $800? My non-existent social life? I was serious. Deadly serious. For the first time in years, I felt purpose burning in my chest. He won't hurt me the same way he hurts you. I'm not invested in keeping up appearances. I'm not afraid of losing a lifestyle I never had. And I'm sure as hell not going to let him continue terrorizing my sister. Lily grabbed my hands. Maggie, you don't understand. James isn't just violent, he's calculating. He knows exactly how to hurt people without leaving evidence. He's destroyed women before me. His first wife, Sarah, she just disappeared. Moved to Florida, he said. Started over. But I found letters she left behind, hidden in the basement. She was terrified of him, too. This information hit me like ice water. James wasn't just an abusive husband. He was a predator, systematic and dangerous. All the more reason to stop him, I said. All the more reason for someone to show him what fear feels like. That afternoon, we planned it carefully. Lily would stay at my apartment while I went to hers. James was expecting her home by dinner time. He had a business meeting that evening, some international video conference about cryptocurrency investments. He'd be distracted, focused on his millions rather than paying close attention to details. We were lucky that Lily and I still looked remarkably similar. Same height, same build, same silver hair, though mine was shorter and less styled. With careful makeup to cover my wrinkles and accentuate hers, plus her designer clothes and jewelry, I could pass for her in dim lighting. Remember, Lily coached me as she applied foundation to my face. He likes dinner at exactly 7. Salmon with dill sauce, wild rice, no vegetables. He'll want his scotch on ice, 3 cubes exactly. Don't speak unless he asks you something directly. And whatever you do, don't contradict him about anything. Anything at all. I nodded, memorizing the routine of captivity. What if he wants to, be intimate? Lily's face darkened. He won't. Not after last night. That's why I'm so bruised. He was angry about something at work, some deal that fell through. When James is angry, he takes it out on me, but then he doesn't want to touch me for days. Says I disgust him when I'm damaged. The casual way she said it broke my heart. This had become her normal, this cycle of violence and revulsion. At 6:30, I stood outside the brownstone on Prospect Park West. The building was beautiful, worth at least $3 million in today's market. Perfect limestone facade, wrought iron details, window boxes with fall flowers. It looked like the kind of place where happy families lived, where children played in the garden and couples grew old together peacefully. Inside, I knew, was a different story entirely. I used Lily's key to open the front door. The house smelled like leather and expensive cologne, with undertones of fear that only I could detect. The living room was pristine, decorated with artwork that probably cost more than my annual income. Everything was perfectly arranged, museum quality, cold. I heard James before I saw him. He was in his study on a conference call, his voice booming about profit margins and international markets. Something about moving assets to offshore accounts, maximizing returns on his stock portfolio. His wealth was vast, built on the backs of others' misfortune, and protected by lawyers who specialized in keeping rich men rich and powerful. I went to the kitchen and began preparing his dinner. The salmon was already defrosted, the wild rice waiting in an expensive ceramic bowl. Everything in this kitchen cost more than my furniture, but felt less like home than my tiny apartment with its cracked linoleum and secondhand appliances. At 7 exactly, he appeared. James hadn't changed much since the wedding 15 years ago, except for gray at his temples and lines around his eyes that spoke of cruelty rather than laughter. He was still handsome in that polished way that money can buy. Expensive suit, perfect teeth, manicured nails. But his eyes were cold, calculating, empty of anything resembling human warmth. "You're moving slowly tonight," he said, not looking directly at me. "The meeting ran long. I need to eat quickly." I served his dinner without speaking, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. This was the man who had been terrorizing my sister, who had stolen her joy and replaced it with fear. This was the man who hit women and felt justified doing it. He ate in silence, occasionally glancing at his phone to check stock prices. His portfolio was worth millions, but apparently it wasn't enough. Men like James, I was learning, were never satisfied. They accumulated wealth the way some people collected stamps, always needing more, never finding fulfillment. After dinner, he went to his study and closed the door. I could hear him making more calls, something about Bitcoin investments and international transfers. I cleaned the kitchen, marveling at appliances that cost more than my car, running water through a faucet that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Then I waited. At 10 o'clock, he emerged from his study. His tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up. He looked tired but satisfied, the way predators look after a successful hunt. "I'm going to watch the news," he announced. "Bring me a scotch, 3 ice cubes." I poured his drink carefully, counting the ice cubes, and brought it to him in the living room. He had settled into a leather armchair that probably cost more than my annual income, remote control in hand like a scepter. "Sit down," he said, not looking away from the television. "We need to talk." My heart began to race, but I kept my expression neutral. I sat on the edge of the sofa, hands folded, trying to channel Lily's trained submission. "You've been quiet tonight," he said. "Usually after our discussions, you're more apologetic, more attentive. Our discussions." He meant after he beat her. "I'm tired," I said softly, trying to match Lily's voice. He turned then, really looking at me for the first time since I'd arrived. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, dangerous. For a moment, I thought he suspected something. "Tired?" he repeated. "From what? You don't work. You don't contribute anything to this household except expenses and problems. Everything you have, everything you wear, everything you eat comes from my hard work, my investments, my success in the market." I bit my tongue to keep from responding. This was what Lily lived with every day. This constant diminishment, this systematic destruction of her sense of worth. "You should be grateful," he continued. "Do you know how many women would love to live in this house? To have access to my wealth? To never have to worry about money?" I wanted to tell him that my sister would happily trade his millions for a single day without fear, that she would choose poverty over living with him. But I stayed silent, watching his face, studying the monster my sister had married. "But gratitude, apparently, is beyond you. So we'll need to continue our little lessons until you learn some appreciation." He stood up then, setting down his scotch glass with deliberate care. Everything James did was deliberate, calculated to maximum effect. "Go upstairs," he said. "Wait for me in the bedroom." This was it, the moment I had dreaded and anticipated. I stood slowly, my joints protesting. At 72, I wasn't as spry as I once was, but I was still strong, still capable of defending myself. I climbed the stairs to their bedroom, another showcase of expensive taste and emotional emptiness. The bed was massive, covered in silk and luxury, but it felt more like a tomb than a place of rest. I waited, listening to his footsteps on the stairs, preparing myself for whatever was coming. He entered the room and closed the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a death sentence. "Take off your clothes," he said quietly. I turned to face him, and for the first time that evening, I let him see the real me. "No," I said. He blinked, surprised. Lily had never said no. Lily had learned that resistance only made things worse. "Excuse me?" I said no. I watched confusion flicker across his features. This wasn't part of his script. His victims didn't refuse him. "Lily, you're clearly having some kind of episode. Take off your clothes and get on the bed. Now." "I'm not Lily," I said calmly. "I'm her sister Margaret. And if you lay one finger on me, I will make sure the entire world knows what you really are." For a moment, he just stared at me. Then, understanding dawned, and with it, rage. "Where is she?" His voice was deadly quiet. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can't hurt her anymore." He moved toward me then, and I saw the violence in his eyes, the same look my sister had been seeing for years. But I wasn't my sister. I wasn't broken by years of systematic abuse. I was angry, and I was done being afraid. "You have no idea who you're messing with," he said, his hand raised to strike. "Neither do you," I replied. And then I did something that surprised both of us. I laughed. "You want to hit me? Go ahead. I'm 72 years old. I've been hit by better men than you. I've survived things that would break you. And unlike my sister, I have absolutely nothing to lose." He hesitated, his hand still raised. "Hit me," I continued, "and I'll call the police. I'll call the newspapers. I'll call everyone in your precious social circle and tell them exactly what kind of man you are. Your business partners, your golf buddies, your cryptocurrency investors. I'll make sure everyone knows that James Morrison, the successful investment banker with millions in assets, is nothing but a coward who beats women. No one will believe you? Maybe not. But they'll wonder. They'll look at you differently. They'll remember this conversation every time they see you. And doubt, James, is a cancer that spreads. I could see the calculation in his eyes, weighing the risks, considering his options. Men like James were always calculating, always looking for the angle that benefited them most. Besides, I added, I'm not afraid of you. Lily was afraid because she loved you once, because she had something to lose. But I never loved you. I think you're pathetic. A weak man who can only feel powerful by hurting women. And pathetic men don't scare me. Something shifted in his expression then. The rage was still there. But underneath it, I saw something I hadn't expected. Fear. He was afraid of me, afraid of what I might do. Afraid of losing control of his perfectly constructed life. Get out, he said quietly. Get out of my house. Gladly. But understand this. If you ever touch my sister again, if you even speak to her harshly, I will destroy you. Not physically, because that would make me like you. But I'll destroy your reputation, your business relationships, your standing in the community. I may not have your money, but I have something you don't. I have nothing left to lose, and that makes me very dangerous. I walked past him toward the door, my heart pounding, but my steps steady. This isn't over, he called after me. Yes, it is, I replied without turning around. It's been over for a very long time. You just didn't know it yet. I left that house and walked to the subway station, still wearing Lily's expensive clothes, but feeling more like myself than I had in years. The October air was crisp against my face, and for the first time in months, I felt truly alive. When I got back to my apartment, Lily was waiting, pacing the small living room like a caged animal. What happened? She asked the moment I walked in. I told her everything, watching her face cycle through disbelief, terror, and finally, something I hadn't seen in years. Hope. You really said all that to him? Every word. She started to cry then, not from fear, but from relief. I can't believe you did that for me. I did it for both of us, I said. I did it because I love you, and I did it because somebody needed to show that man what consequences feel like. We stayed up all night talking, planning, trying to figure out what came next. Lily was afraid to go back to the house, afraid of James's retaliation, but she was also afraid to leave permanently, to give up the financial security his wealth provided. I don't have anywhere to go, she said. I don't have any money of my own. Everything is in his name. You have me, I reminded her. We'll figure it out together. The next morning, I called a lawyer I found through legal aid. His name was David Rodriguez, and he specialized in domestic violence cases. His office was in a modest building in Queens, nothing like the fancy law firms James probably used, but David had something James's lawyers didn't have. He actually cared about justice. Your sister needs to document everything, David told us during our consultation. Every bruise, every threat, every incident she can remember. New York has strong domestic violence laws, but we need evidence. Over the next several weeks, we built a case. Lily took photographs of old bruises and new ones. She wrote down dates and incidents, creating a timeline of abuse that painted a clear picture of James's systematic cruelty. We found medical records from hospital visits she'd made alone, claiming to have fallen or walked into doors. But James wasn't passive during this time. True to his nature, he tried to control the narrative. He called Lily constantly, alternating between threats and promises. He would change, he said. He would get counseling. He would transfer some of his stock holdings into her name, give her access to his cryptocurrency accounts, make her a true partner in his wealth. When promises didn't work, he tried intimidation. He had private investigators follow us. He had lawyers send threatening letters. He even tried to have Lily committed to a psychiatric facility, claiming she was having a mental breakdown and making false accusations. But for every move James made, we had a countermove. David Rodriguez might not have had James's resources, but he had experience and determination. More importantly, he had something James didn't expect, a network of other women who had survived similar situations. 3 months after that first night, we were ready for court. The hearing was in Kings County Family Court, a building that had seen thousands of stories like ours. Lily was terrified, convinced that James's money and connections would win out over truth and evidence. James showed up to court looking every inch the successful businessman. Expensive suit, confident demeanor, a team of lawyers that probably cost more per hour than most people made in a week. His strategy was clear: portray Lily as unstable, vindictive, trying to steal his hard-earned wealth through false accusations. But Lily was no longer the broken woman who had shown up at my apartment with bruises on her face. 3 months of safety, of support, of being believed had begun to heal something essential in her. When she took the stand, her voice was clear and strong. She told her story simply, without dramatization or embellishment. She showed photographs of injuries. She read from her carefully documented timeline. She spoke about living in fear, about walking on eggshells, about the systematic destruction of her sense of self-worth. When James's lawyers tried to attack her credibility, to suggest she was lying for financial gain, she looked them straight in the eye. "I never wanted his money," she said. "I wanted his love. I wanted respect. I wanted to feel safe in my own home. Money can't buy those things, and all his millions couldn't give them to me." The judge, a woman in her 60s who had heard too many similar stories, listened carefully to both sides. When it came time for her decision, her words were measured but firm. "Mr. Morrison, you have presented yourself as a successful, upstanding member of the community. Your financial achievements are impressive. Your business acumen is apparent. But success in the stock market does not give you the right to terrorize your wife. Wealth accumulated through Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investments does not justify domestic violence. Having millions in assets does not excuse abuse." She granted Lily a restraining order and awarded her temporary support while the divorce proceedings moved forward. It wasn't everything we had hoped for, but it was a beginning. James's face as the judge read her decision was something I'll never forget. For the first time, I saw him truly afraid, truly powerless. His money, his connections, his carefully constructed image hadn't been enough to protect him from the consequences of his actions. Outside the courthouse, he approached us one last time. His lawyers tried to stop him, but his rage overrode their caution. "This isn't over," he said, the same words he had spoken in the bedroom that night. "Yes, it is," Lily replied, her voice steady. "It's been over for a long time. I just didn't know it yet." I recognized her words as an echo of what I had said to James that night. My sister was finding her own strength, her own voice. The divorce process took another year. James fought everything, trying to protect his assets, his reputation, his sense of control. He hired forensic accountants to hide money in offshore accounts. He moved cryptocurrency holdings to untraceable wallets. He liquidated stocks and claimed business losses to minimize what Lily might receive in the settlement. But David Rodriguez was relentless. He found hidden accounts, traced suspicious transfers, and built a compelling case that James had been systematically hiding marital assets for years. The more we dug, the clearer it became that James's wealth was even greater than we had imagined, and that he had been planning for this divorce long before Lily ever thought about leaving. During this time, Lily stayed with me in my small apartment. Two 70-something women sharing a one-bedroom apartment should have been difficult, but it felt like coming home. We were sisters again, twins again, supporting each other through the hardest chapter of our lives. We developed routines that brought joy back into our days. Morning coffee and crossword puzzles, afternoon walks through Prospect Park, evening television programs that we watched while sharing a bowl of popcorn. Simple pleasures that James's millions had never been able to provide. Lily began to remember who she was before she became afraid. She started painting again, something she had given up years ago because James said it was a waste of time. Her hands, which had trembled from anxiety for so long, grew steady as they held brushes and mixed colors. She also began talking to other women who had survived domestic violence. Through David's network, she connected with a support group that met weekly at a community center in Brooklyn. These women came from all walks of life, some wealthy, some poor, some young, some old, but they shared the common experience of surviving systematic abuse. "I never understood before," Lily told me one evening after a particularly powerful group session. "I thought it was my fault. I thought if I could just be better, more grateful, more perfect, he would love me the way I needed to be loved. But it was never about me. It was about his need to control, to dominate." The divorce was finally settled 18 months after that October night when I took Lily's place. James was required to pay substantial alimony and to divide their assets equitably. He lost the brownstone worth over $3 million, which was sold and the proceeds split between them. His investment portfolio, including stocks worth millions and cryptocurrency holdings that had grown substantially, was divided as well. But more than the financial settlement, Lily got something priceless: her freedom. On the day the divorce was finalized, we celebrated with dinner at a small Italian restaurant in our neighborhood. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just good food and genuine warmth. Lily raised her glass of house wine and smiled. "To second chances," she said. "To sister love," I replied. "To being brave enough to say no," she added. We clinked glasses, two elderly women who had learned that it's never too late to choose courage over fear, dignity over security, love over money. But our story doesn't end there. Sometimes the most profound changes come not from the big dramatic moments, but from the quiet decisions we make every day afterward. With her portion of the divorce settlement, Lily bought a small apartment 3 blocks from mine. It wasn't a mansion, wasn't a showcase of wealth and status, but it was hers, truly hers, and it was filled with light. She painted the walls herself, bright colors that James would have hated. She hung her own artwork, displayed photographs of people who actually loved her, created a space that reflected who she was rather than who someone else wanted her to be. I helped her furnish the apartment, and we had the best time shopping for things she actually wanted, rather than things that impressed others. A comfortable sofa in cheerful blue fabric, a kitchen table where friends could gather, bookshelves for all the novels she planned to read now that she had time and peace. We also did something that felt both practical and symbolic. We took a self-defense class together. At our ages, we weren't going to become action heroes, but we learned that we were stronger than we thought. We learned that our voices could be weapons when used with confidence. We learned that we didn't have to be victims just because we were women, just because we were older, just because we didn't have vast fortunes to protect us. The instructor was a patient woman named Rosa, who had been teaching self-defense for 20 years. She understood that not all violence looks the same, and that not all victims fit the same profile. The most important thing, Rosa told our class of 8 women ranging in age from 60 to 80, is trusting your instincts. You all survived this long because you're smart and strong. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. During one class, we practiced saying no forcefully, projecting our voices, making ourselves heard. It sounds simple, but for many of us, particularly Lily, it was revolutionary. She had spent years having her no ignored, dismissed, punished. Learning to say it with confidence and strength was like learning to breathe again. 6 months after the divorce was final, something unexpected happened. James contacted Lily. Not through lawyers this time, not with threats or manipulation. He sent a simple letter, handwritten on expensive stationery, asking if he could see her one more time to apologize properly. Lily's first instinct was to throw the letter away, but something made her hesitate. She brought it to me, and we read it together over coffee in her sunny new kitchen. I know I have no right to ask this, he had written. I know I don't deserve your time or attention, but I've been in therapy for the past year and I'm beginning to understand the damage I caused. I don't expect forgiveness, but I would like the chance to acknowledge the harm I did and to take full responsibility for my actions. What do you think? Lily asked me. I think it's your choice, I said. But if you decide to see him, you don't have to do it alone. She thought about it for a week before responding. She agreed to meet him in a public place, with me present, for 1 hour only. No longer. No private conversation. No discussion of their past relationship beyond his apology. They met at a coffee shop in Dumbo, with windows overlooking the East River. James looked different than he had in court. Older, more tired, less polished. His expensive suit was replaced with jeans and a sweater. He looked, for the first time since I had known him, like an ordinary man rather than a powerful predator. Thank you for agreeing to see me, he said quietly when we sat down. His voice was different too, lacking the commanding tone that had once filled rooms and intimidated opponents. Lily nodded but didn't speak. She had learned that she didn't owe him comfort or reassurance. I've done a lot of work with a therapist who specializes in domestic violence, he continued. I've had to face some very ugly truths about myself, about the ways I learned to relate to women, about the damage I caused not just to you but to others. He mentioned Sarah, his first wife, acknowledging that she had left because of his abuse, not because she simply wanted a different life. He talked about his mother, who had been controlled by his father in similar ways, and how he had internalized those patterns without ever questioning them. I'm not telling you this to excuse my behavior, he said. Nothing excuses what I did to you. I'm telling you because I want you to know that I understand now. I understand that I systematically destroyed your sense of self-worth. I understand that I used my money and social position to isolate you and make you feel trapped. I understand that I stole years of your life and filled them with fear instead of love. Lily listened without expression, her hands steady around her coffee cup. When he finished speaking, she waited a long moment before responding. I accept your apology, she said finally. Not because it changes what happened, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I hope your therapy helps you become a better person. I hope you never hurt another woman the way you hurt me. But my healing doesn't depend on your growth. I've found peace without your repentance. And I'll keep that peace whether you change or not. James nodded, tears in his eyes. I know, and I'm grateful that you found a way to heal, despite what I did to you. He looked at me then. And I owe you an apology too, Margaret. What you did that night, standing up to me, protecting your sister, it was braver than anything I've ever done in my life. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or calculation, but I saw only exhaustion and genuine remorse. I don't need your apology, I said, but I'm glad you're finally taking responsibility. After exactly 1 hour, as agreed, we left. James didn't ask for more time, didn't push for ongoing contact. He simply thanked Lily again and walked away, back to whatever life he was building in the ruins of his old one. How do you feel? I asked Lily as we walked along the waterfront afterward. Free, she said without hesitation. I feel completely free. That meeting was 2 years ago. Since then, Lily and I have built a life that neither of us could have imagined during those dark days when she first showed up at my door with bruises on her face. We travel together now, something neither of us had ever done before. Not expensive trips to exotic locations, but simple adventures to places we've always wanted to see. We've been to the Grand Canyon, to Niagara Falls, to the redwood forests of California. We take buses and stay in modest hotels and eat at diners along the way, and we enjoy every moment of it. We've also become advocates for other women in similar situations. Lily volunteers at the domestic violence shelter where she first found support, and I help with a legal aid clinic that assists elderly women navigating divorce and financial abuse. We share our story not because it's easy, but because we know other women need to hear that escape is possible, that it's never too late to choose dignity over security. Last month, we spoke at a conference for social workers and therapists who work with domestic violence survivors. Standing on that stage, looking out at an audience of people dedicated to helping others heal, I felt a pride I had never experienced before. Not pride in what we had survived, but pride in what we had become. The thing people don't understand about domestic violence, Lily told the audience, is that it's not really about physical abuse. It's about power and control. It's about making someone believe that they are worthless, that they deserve mistreatment, that they have no other options. She looked at me then, and I saw in her eyes the same strength that had carried us through the darkest days. But the thing abusers don't understand, she continued, is that love is more powerful than fear. The love my sister showed me when she literally took my place, risked her own safety to protect mine, that love reminded me that I was worth protecting. And once I remembered that, once I really believed it, everything changed. After the conference, a young woman approached us. She couldn't have been more than 30, but her eyes held the same hunted look that Lily's had held that terrible October day. My boyfriend has never hit me, she said quietly, but everything else you described, the constant criticism, the isolation from friends, the way he controls all our money even though I work too, is that really abuse? Lily took her hands gently. If you're asking that question, you already know the answer. We spent 2 hours with that young woman, connecting her with resources, sharing phone numbers, helping her understand that she wasn't crazy, that her experiences were valid, that she deserved better. When she finally left, she stood a little straighter, spoke a little louder. We had given her something precious, permission to trust her own instincts. These encounters happen more often than you might expect. Women of all ages, in all kinds of relationships, living with various forms of abuse and control. Some are financially dependent, some are socially isolated, some are convinced that their situation isn't bad enough to justify leaving. All of them need to hear that their experiences matter, that they deserve respect, that it's never too late to choose a different path. Tonight, as I sit in my apartment writing this story, I can hear Lily in her kitchen next door, humming while she cooks dinner. We'll eat together, as we do most evenings, and talk about our day. Maybe we'll watch a movie or work on a crossword puzzle, or plan our next small adventure. It's a quiet life, a simple life, but it's ours. We built it from the ashes of fear and control, and every day we choose to tend it with love and respect rather than obligation and resentment. Sometimes people ask me if I regret getting involved, if I wish I had minded my own business and let Lily figure out her own problems. They worry that I sacrifice too much of my own comfort and security to help someone else. But here's what they don't understand. Saving my sister saved me too. For years before that October night, I had been drifting through my days feeling useless, invisible, forgotten. I thought my life was essentially over, that my best years were behind me, that I had nothing left to contribute to the world. Taking Lily's place that night reminded me that I was still strong, still capable, still needed. It gave me purpose and courage I didn't know I possessed. It showed me that love is not just something you feel, but something you do, especially when doing it requires sacrifice and risk. I learned that being 72 doesn't mean being powerless. It doesn't mean accepting mistreatment or settling for loneliness or believing that your best days are behind you. Age, I discovered, can be a source of strength rather than limitation. When you've survived 7 decades on this earth, you've learned things that younger people haven't learned yet. You've developed resilience and wisdom that money can't buy. Most importantly, I learned that family isn't just about obligation. It's about choice. It's about deciding to show up for people who matter, to stand with them in their darkest moments, to fight for their dignity even when they can't fight for it themselves. The bruises on Lily's face healed within a few weeks. The bruises on her spirit took much longer to fade, and some of the scars will probably remain forever. But she doesn't hide those scars anymore. She wears them as evidence of survival, as proof that she was strong enough to endure and brave enough to escape. As for James, I honestly don't know what became of him. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he sold his business and moved to Florida, that he continues in therapy, that he never remarried. Whether his remorse was genuine or simply another form of manipulation, I'll never know. But it doesn't matter anymore. His story is no longer intertwined with ours. What matters is that two elderly women learned it's never too late to choose courage over fear, dignity over security, love over money. What matters is that we found each other again, not as victims but as survivors, not as burden but as blessing. What matters is that every morning when I wake up, I have purpose. Every day when I see my sister's face bright with hope instead of shadowed with fear, I know that standing up to a bully was worth whatever risks I took. What matters is that we proved something important, that love is stronger than fear, that truth is more powerful than money, that two determined women can change their lives no matter how old they are or how difficult their circumstances seem to be. If you're listening to this story and recognizing yourself or someone you love, please know that it's never too late to ask for help. It's never too late to say no. It's never too late to choose yourself, to demand respect, to walk away from people who diminish your worth. You don't have to be young to be brave. You don't have to be rich to be valuable. You don't have to be perfect to deserve love and kindness and safety. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply refuse to accept unacceptable treatment. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is show up for someone who needs you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is help someone remember their own worth. 3 years ago, I thought my story was essentially over. I thought I was just marking time, waiting for the end, invisible and irrelevant. But it turned out I was wrong. It turned out that some of the most important chapters of my life were still unwritten, waiting for the right moment to unfold. That moment came when my sister needed me, when love demanded action, when fear had to be faced down with courage. That moment came when I remembered that being older doesn't mean being powerless, that having less money doesn't mean having less value, that a lifetime of experience can be a source of strength rather than limitation. I'm 75 now, and I'm not done yet. Neither is my sister. We have more adventures planned, more women to help, more love to give and receive. We have grandchildren to spoil and friends to cherish, and dreams we're still working to fulfill. Most importantly, we have each other. Two women who learned that the bond between sisters can survive anything, that love given freely is returned multiplied, that it's never too late to stand up and fight for what matters most. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to choose between safety and love, between comfort and courage? Have you ever known someone who needed you to be braver than you thought possible? I want to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that you're stronger than you know, and that it's never too late to choose courage, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Together we can keep opening our hearts, sharing our truths, and reminding each other that love is always worth fighting for. Since I started sharing our story more publicly, something beautiful has happened. Women have reached out to us from all over the world. Letters and emails and messages on social media, all sharing their own experiences of finding courage in unexpected places, of discovering strength they didn't know they possessed. There's Maria from Texas, who left her abusive husband at age 68 and now runs a support group for older women escaping domestic violence. There's Sarah from Ontario, who confronted her son's abusive behavior toward his wife and helped her daughter-in-law find safety. There's Jennifer from Alabama, who stood up to her wealthy father-in-law when she discovered he was financially abusing her elderly mother-in-law. Each story is different, but they all share common threads. The moment when someone decides enough is enough, the discovery that love requires action, not just feeling, the realization that age and circumstances don't have to define our capacity for courage. These women have become part of our extended family, connected by the shared understanding that survival sometimes requires transformation, that healing often demands community, that hope can emerge from the darkest places. We've learned that domestic violence doesn't discriminate based on age, income, education, or social status. It happens in trailer parks and mansions, to teenagers and grandmothers, to people with PhDs and people who never graduated high school. What makes the difference isn't external circumstances, but internal recognition. The moment someone realizes they deserve better and decides to act on that belief. Lily and I have also discovered something we never expected, that our story has power not just for women escaping abuse, but for anyone who feels trapped by circumstances, diminished by others, convinced that change is impossible. We've heard from adult children caring for aging parents, from people stuck in soul-crushing jobs they can't afford to leave, from individuals battling addictions or mental illness or crushing debt. While the specifics vary, the underlying message remains the same. It's never too late to choose courage, to prioritize your well-being, to seek help when you need it. This ripple effect has taught us that courage is contagious. When one person takes a brave step, it gives others permission to take their own brave steps. When someone chooses love over fear, it reminds everyone around them that such choices are possible. One of the most profound responses came from a woman named Elena, whose grandmother had been in an abusive marriage for over 40 years before finally leaving at age 75. Elena wrote, "Your story helped me understand that my grandmother wasn't weak for staying so long. She was incredibly strong for leaving at all. And she was even stronger for rebuilding her life from nothing and finding joy again in her final years." This perspective shift, from judging survival to celebrating resilience, has become central to how we talk about difficult relationships and challenging circumstances. Instead of asking, "Why didn't you leave sooner?" we've learned to ask, "What gave you the strength to leave when you did?" Instead of focusing on what took so long, we celebrate what it took to make change happen. Lily often says that one of the biggest barriers to leaving her marriage wasn't just fear of James's retaliation, but shame about how long she had stayed. She felt like people would judge her for not seeing the warning signs earlier, for not being strong enough to leave when the abuse first started, for being foolish enough to believe his promises that he would change. But in working with other survivors, she's learned that there's no right timeline for escape. Every person's situation is unique. Every circumstance has its own complications. Every survivor has their own reasons for the choices they make when they make them. Some women leave after the first incident of violence. Others stay for years, hoping things will improve. Some have small children to consider. Others worry about elderly parents or disabled family members. Some have careers or businesses they can't abandon. Others have no job skills or education to fall back on. What matters isn't when someone leaves, but that they eventually find the courage and opportunity to prioritize their safety and well-being. What matters is that they survive long enough to discover their own strength, to find people who will support them, to believe that they deserve better treatment. This understanding has made us better advocates and more compassionate friends. Instead of rushing to judgment, we listen carefully to each person's unique circumstances. Instead of offering quick solutions, we help people think through their options and make decisions that feel right for their situation. Instead of pushing our timeline, we support theirs. We've also learned that healing isn't linear. Lily still has bad days when the memories feel overwhelming, when fear creeps back in, when she doubts the decisions she made. I have moments when I wonder if I was too hasty, if I put us both at risk unnecessarily, if there might have been a safer way to help her. But we've developed strategies for managing these difficult moments. We remind each other of how far we've come. We focus on the positive changes in our daily lives. We connect with other survivors who understand the complexity of recovery. Most importantly, we give ourselves permission to feel whatever we're feeling without judgment or shame. Recovery, we've learned, isn't about forgetting what happened or pretending it wasn't traumatic. It's about integrating those experiences into a life that's full and meaningful despite them. It's about using our survival as a foundation for growth rather than letting it define our limitations. For Lily, this has meant rediscovering her artistic talents and using them to express emotions she couldn't voice for years. Her paintings now hang in her apartment and in a local community center, bright splashes of color that speak to resilience and renewal. She's also begun writing, documenting not just the abuse she endured, but the process of healing that followed. For me, it's meant finding purpose I never expected in my 70s. I wake up each morning knowing that I might receive a phone call from someone who needs help, an email from someone who read our story and found hope in it, an invitation to speak at an event where our experience might make a difference. This sense of purpose has transformed not just how I spend my days, but how I think about aging itself. Instead of viewing my 70s as a time of decline and limitation, I see them as a period of unexpected opportunity and influence. Instead of feeling invisible and irrelevant, I feel more seen and more necessary than I have in years. The work we do isn't always easy or pleasant. We've sat with women whose stories are even more harrowing than Lily's. We've attended court hearings where justice wasn't served and funerals for women who didn't escape in time. We've watched some survivors thrive while others struggle with addiction, depression, or chronic health problems related to their trauma. But we've also witnessed incredible transformations. We've seen women who arrived at shelters with nothing but the clothes on their backs go on to build successful careers and loving relationships. We've watched elderly women learn to live independently for the first time in their lives and discover joys they never imagined possible. We've celebrated court victories, new apartments, reconciliations with children, and countless small daily triumphs that rebuild broken spirits. Each success reminds us why this work matters, why our story needed to be told, why courage shared becomes courage multiplied. Each woman who escapes abuse creates space for another woman to believe escape is possible. Each survivor who rebuilds her life demonstrates that healing is achievable. Each person who chooses love over fear makes the world a little bit safer for everyone. As I finish writing this story, I'm thinking about all the women who will read or hear it. Some of you may be living in situations similar to what Lily endured, calculating whether it's safe to leave, wondering if anyone would believe you or help you if you tried. Some of you may have friends or family members you're worried about, people who seem to be walking on eggshells or making excuses for injuries or changes in behavior. Some of you may be survivors yourselves, years past your own escape, but still dealing with the aftermath, still working to rebuild trust and self-worth. Some may be advocates or professionals who work with survivors, looking for new ways to offer hope and support. Whoever you are, wherever you are in your own journey, please know that your story matters. Your experiences have value. Your survival has meaning. Your courage, however small it might seem to you, ripples outward in ways you may never fully understand. The night I stood up to James in that expensive bedroom, I had no idea that moment would lead to speaking at conferences, counseling other women, or creating a new sense of purpose in my 70s. I was simply a frightened, angry older woman who refused to let her sister suffer alone. But that single act of love and defiance became the foundation for everything that followed. This is the mystery and magic of courage. We never know how far our brave choices will travel, how many lives they'll touch, how much healing they'll generate. We take one step forward, not knowing where it will lead, trusting that movement toward love and justice is always worthwhile. 3 years after that October night, Lily and I are living proof that it's never too late to rewrite your story, to choose differently, to discover strength you didn't know you possessed. We're evidence that love is indeed stronger than fear, that truth is more powerful than money, that 2 determined women can change not just their own lives but the lives of countless others. If our story has touched your heart, if it's reminded you of your own capacity for courage, if it's given you hope that change is possible no matter your circumstances, then sharing it has been worthwhile. If it's helped you recognize that age doesn't mean powerlessness, that love requires action, that every voice matters in the fight against abuse and injustice, then every difficult moment in our journey has had meaning. The most beautiful part of our story isn't how it began, with violence and fear and desperation. It's how it continues, with purpose and community and hope. It's the women we've helped and who have helped us. It's the friendships we've formed and the healing we've witnessed. It's the discovery that some of life's most important chapters can be written in its final act. Tonight, Lily and I will have dinner together as we do most evenings. We'll talk about our day, share our plans for tomorrow, maybe watch a movie or work on a puzzle. It's a simple routine, unremarkable in many ways, but it represents everything we fought for and everything we won. The right to live without fear, to make choices based on love rather than terror, to fill our days with peace instead of violence. That's the real victory, not the legal settlement or the public recognition or even the knowledge that our story has helped others. The real victory is in the quiet moments, the ordinary days, the simple pleasure of being safe and free and genuinely happy. We earned this peace through courage and persistence and the determination to believe we deserved better. We built this happiness on the foundation of love shared and risks taken and truth spoken even when it was dangerous to do so. If you take nothing else from our story, please take this. You have more strength than you know, more value than anyone has told you, more capacity for change than your current circumstances suggest. Whatever age you are, whatever resources you have, whatever obstacles you face, it's never too late to choose courage over fear, dignity over security, love over money. The world needs your courage. Your family needs your strength. You deserve your own freedom. And when you take that first brave step, whenever you're ready to take it, you won't be walking alone. You'll be joining a community of survivors and thrivers, of women and men who refuse to accept unacceptable treatment, who chose to bet on hope rather than surrender to despair. Your story matters. Your voice has power. Your courage will echo in ways you can't imagine, touching lives you'll never meet. inspiring changes you'll never see. Trust in that power. Believe in that importance. Step forward into that potential, knowing that love and justice walk with you, knowing that you're stronger than you think, knowing that it's never too late to choose the life you deserve. This is what Lily and I have learned, what we share with every woman who comes to us seeking hope. Courage shared becomes courage multiplied, love given freely returns tenfold, and the choice to stand up for what's right creates ripples that travel far beyond what we can see. 3 years ago, I was a lonely elderly woman with $800 and no sense of purpose. Tonight, I'm a survivor, an advocate, a sister, a friend to women I never would have met if I hadn't taken that terrifying, necessary step into Lily's world of violence and fear. The transformation hasn't always been easy, but it's been worth every difficult moment. Because it led us here, to this life we built together, to this community we found, to this hope we can offer others who are still walking in darkness. And that, more than any legal victory or financial settlement, more than any recognition or praise, is the real reward for choosing courage. The knowledge that love shared and risks taken and truth spoken can literally save lives, starting with your own.